A call that shall live in infamy and still enrages the hearts of Cowboy fans from coast to coast. And good. Hope it makes them mad. It was a bad call. They did have to tweak the rule after that. But the famous Dez caught it play from that 2015 divisional game at Lambeau Field. It'll be the subject of our Packers Prime this Sunday as we get you ready for football season by replaying some of the iconic games, including commentary from our next guest, Wayne Larrivee, who was there that day. Good morning, Wayne. How are you?
Good morning, Czabe. Did we blow that call? Is that why you guys used the network call on that?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's just because it's a bit more iconic. I don't know. It's what people remember. I don't know. Josh, any reason why?
That was the one that I had available to me, Wayne.
Okay.
Didn't have your call on standby.
How was your call?
They'll hear it this Sunday.
You'll have to tune in.
You.
See, we didn't play it because then people were like, I already heard Wayne call the Dez caught it play. I don't need to listen to Packers Prime on Sunday.
That's right. Oh my.
Anyway, so what are your recollections of that game and of that call? And did you think at the time there's no way they're overturning this?
No, I remember our feeling in the booth as we watched the replay, actually on the big board, same as Mike McCarthy did in the stadium, that there was a chance they could overturn that play. But, you know, when Larry and I talk about this all the time, when we see a play and we're sure about a replay and we see it again and again, and we make a pronouncement, hey, he didn't catch the ball, 9 times out of 10, replay comes back and says he caught the ball, that kind of thing. So we were pleasantly surprised when they made that ruling. But, you know, guys, I got to tell you, I was asked years later on a Dallas radio station about that play and that call, because it's every bit as big in Dallas as it is in Green Bay, for a different reason, obviously. And I said, you know what? Let's say Dez Bryant caught the ball. Let's say they scored a touchdown. If you really remember that game, in the second half and especially the fourth quarter, the Packers offense was moving the ball at will against the Cowboys defense. They were defeated. They were done defensively. The Packers had them beaten to a pulp. And I said, you know, so let's say Dez scores. Aaron Rodgers is driving the team back downfield, and it's just going to be a more dramatic win for Green Bay. That's all. And if you recall, okay, the Packers got the ball back, and they're trying to kill the clock, and they almost scored anyway.
Right. The way you respond to a Cowboy fan is, look, this gives you something to make an excuse for, because you would have lost anyway, and it's better this way. It would have hurt more had they not made that call.
No, absolutely.
You pat them on the head sarcastically, and you send them on their way.
Yeah.
That's what you do. All right. So the Packers wrap up their second round of OTAs, their second week of it. They got the mandatory minicamp coming up in a week, something like that. Is it late next week? I believe
Tuesday
it is.
and Wednesday next week. Yep, mandatory minicamp.
Okay. All right. And they did bowling for their team building activity. We were asking, why is it always bowling? Do you know why it's always bowling, it seems, with NFL teams on the team building activity?
It must be just an easier thing to do together. I mean, like one time Mike Sherman took him paintball, one of those paintball deals.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, he did
once.
Was that the 4 and 12 year? Was that the?
No, I think it was actually a pretty good year.
We lost our eye year.
I don't know what they did in the 4 and 12 year, but you know, that got Mike McCarthy into the job. Actually, it got Mike Sherman ridden out of town. So
that's why you go bowling, Butch.
You might be right. All right, go fishing then. Get some boats, call it on Lake Michigan. Call it a day.
Go
fishing. They went to couples counseling the year they went 4 and 12. It really did not help.
True. They're not. Wayne, they're not having to go to couples counseling right now. Jordan Love says this is as close that since he's been there that he feels his team is to a Super Bowl. Kind of being around him early on here, do you think that's true?
Well, you know, they've got the thing that strikes me as I've watched them through the OTAs is the amount of competition they have at each position and what that translates into depth eventually. You know, they're going to have a very deep football team. They're still very young, But nonetheless, I think they're a lot better defensively on the back end of that defense. I think this new system up front using the 4-3 with allowing the defensive linemen to get into the offensive backfield without reading and waiting to read the run or whatever. I think they're going to be much better defensively. And if they are, they'll be good enough offensively to make a long run again in the playoffs. So, hey, anything's possible that we're talking about in a season. We haven't factored in injuries or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, I think this is a very deep Packers team, deeper than the teams they had when they were loaded up and, going Super Bowl or bust on the last couple of years of Aaron Rodgers.
All right. I have a stat for you. It's our stat of the day brought to you by Quick Trip. And I throw this up for Wayne, not trying to trip him up or make him look bad. I try to do it because I know he'll know this number. So it's a flex for you, Wayne. I know you're going to know this number. What was the Packers' goal-to-go touchdown percentage rate last year? So in other words, every time they got into goal-to-go, what percentage of those drives ended in a touchdown?
I'm going to say 95%.
And that is why I set Wayne up for these things. Of course he knows the number. No numbers get by Wayne.
Yeah.
That was number one in the NFL by a secretariat-like margin.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next closest team was 83%. And then they're kind of bunched together below that 83 mark. Question: why?
Whoa.
And is it sustainable? Quick follow-up on that. Because part of me worries that it was just they were so hot at goal to go last year.
Yeah, I honestly can't give you a great answer to that because obviously goal to go means, you could be first down and goal to go at the 9-yard line and you still have territory to cover to get in. I honestly don't know, Zay, but I know these stats fluctuate a lot. For example, a few years ago, I think it was 2020, the Packers were like 80% touchdowns in the red zone. And the next year they couldn't buy a touchdown in the red zone. So
exactly.
These things fluctuate. Yeah. But in those situations last year, they were very good. Play calling. I think the ability of Jordan Love maybe to create with his legs a little bit and at least buy time and that type of thing. So I think they also have better receivers in the red zone now. You've got the tall tight ends. You've got Romeo Doubs, who did a lot of business in the red zone. They have their best core of receivers for red zone play since Devontae Adams left.
Wayne, when you look at this, is Josh Jacobs a better red zone running back than Aaron Jones?
I think he could be, Butchie, because in the red zone, you want a more physical style of runner. You know what I mean? You got a lot of bodies.
I'm not saying that 95% you're going to beat 95%, but I think they've upgraded in the red zone because of that physicality.
I think a little bit, yeah, and especially if you get goal to go with a running back like that. There's no doubt in my mind. The other factor, he's an excellent receiver as well. So I think you're going to see him featured there in a lot of situations. So, I'm not going to say they upgraded the running back spot by trading out Aaron Jones for Josh Jacobs.
Sure. I'm just saying goal to go. Physicality.
Exactly.
Like Jacobs is a little bit more of a physical runner than Aaron. Aaron does some other things, but in that position, I think they've upgraded.
I think what they're going to get is like production and maybe a little healthier production at that position with Josh Jacobs this year. And it's going to be more of a grinded out type thing with him. That's what he does a little bit better. Aaron will go, get 2 yards, 3 yards, and then hit you for 50 yards. Josh Jacobs probably a little more down to down. He's going to get you a little more production in that regard. So the production is going to be a little different, but I think they're still going to be very productive at that position.
There's a lot of players along the way that the Packers were kind of kicking the tires on, but didn't make the move on. And it seems like you look back and go, wow, thank God. Darren Waller is another example of glad we didn't go down that route. Is it that the Packers have just been a bit lucky, or is their vetting process for really figuring out, would this guy belong with us better than maybe most teams?
Yeah, I think Goody and his staff are responsible for that. When I look at Milt Hendrickson, who's in the front office and some of their pro personnel scouting that goes on, they're very thorough. They're maybe a little bit cautious in terms of they're not just going to take a flyer on anybody They really have to feel that this guy is going to make a big difference for them. I think when you get to that stage, we talk so much about college scouting, but just as important, Czabe, is your pro scouting and the moves you make or don't make either during the season or, more importantly, in the offseason when you're throwing big money around. That's the big deal. I go back to that Brian's first free agent class. You had Adrian Amos in the secondary. You had the Smith brothers, Preston and Zadarius Smith, and had an excellent offensive lineman in there whose name escapes me at the moment, went to Denver after Green Bay. But they've done a very good job when they've dipped into veteran free agency. And that to me says your scouting on the pro level is very good.
Yeah, there's a metric for it called FATA. You ever heard of the FATA metric?
No.
Gosh, it stands for free agent Todd avoidance. Free agent Todd FATA.
Wayne, I knew you weren't going to hear of this because I knew this was made up. I knew this was a new one.
FATA. Yeah. So
free agent Todd.
Todd is Todd. Todd.
I thought you said Todd. See, I'm not a fish guy, so I wouldn't know. So
no, Todd. So Todd is just an annoying guy that you end up rolling your eyes and saying, who invited this guy to whatever function? There are Todds that could be picked up in free agency, and they've done a great job. Who was the last Todd, boys, do you think the Packers picked up? I can think of one. Mercedes Lewis was a Todd. Or not Mercedes Lewis, his brother, Martellus. No, Bennett.
I was going to say Bennett, yeah.
Martellus Bennett.
You got there,
Martellus Bennett.
Jimmy Graham.
Martellus Bennett was the last Todd. I don't know if Jimmy Graham was a Todd other than he was kind of washed.
Yeah, it's a Todd. I know that one's kind of close, but
okay.
Yeah, you know what? They got Bennett and they replaced Jared Cook with Bennett. And I remember it's 2017. I'm on the elevator with one of the key scouts, Alonzo Highsmith. You remember him? We're in Chicago, and he turns to me. He says, we messed up. Jared Cook wanted to be here. And we instead went with Martellus Bennett, and it was just awful. It blew up, and that's one of the biggest ones I can think of. There was another one involving a defensive nose tackle back in the Mike Sherman era that was a big free agent acquisition, and that didn't work out at all. So, it's a perilous – when you go to free agency, it's perilous.
Yeah, there have been ones over the year, but I'm just saying it's been a good while. I really think they do a great job. The Packers just know who's going to be good for them, so they avoid the Todds, and then they pick up guys that you don't think twice about who are pow, like this Bo Melton kid. I mean, Bo Melton's legit. Forget that he was a 7th-round pick. Forget that he's 5'11" out of Rutgers. This kid can play, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Seattle had him in camp for almost a year and a half, and then the Packers picked him up and developed him a little bit, and he came out of that Minnesota game and hasn't looked back since. Had a big 50-yard touchdown catch in practice the other day, and I know it's practice. It's not games, even though we write about it and talk about it like it's practice, like it's a big game. It's not, but the fact is that guy becomes all of a sudden at the end of last year an integral part of the receiving corps. Bo Melton, who knew?
Yeah. All right. Very good. Wayne, I see you've got 3. I'm looking at Wayne right now, Butchie, and I see Wayne's 3 biggest passions in life, aside from his beautiful bride, on him right now. He's got his Deer Valley hat. Yep. He's got a golf ball marker on the visor, and he's got Lambeau Field over his shoulder.
That's it.
That's the holy trinity right there.
Bang, boom.
Skiing. Golf,
if we could only live Wayne's life.
Oh yeah, Butchie. There is no way you or John Kuhn would want my life. Trust me.
All right. Wayne, as always, a pleasure. We'll listen to you talk about the Dez caught it or didn't catch it game this Sunday for Packers Prime.
I just hope we didn't blow the call. That's all.
We didn't have it handy. We didn't want to blow the tease. Come on, man.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you, Wayne.